And welcome to our sixth and final episode regarding Parshat Truma. And so I want to share with you a little bit more of what I had suggested in a previous session. So I'm going to start with the bracha, of course. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And this is what I want to share for this, just for the moment, okay? And this, well, that's interesting. That's not what I was highlighting. So let me try this again. Okay, give me a moment, please. Okay. Let's try again. There we go. This, I would hope this would. It doesn't work. Huh. Oh, that's what you are seeing that, correct?
We're seeing Mishkan,
That's
north,
right.
south, west, east.
That's what I want you to see.
Yeah.
This is a bird's eye view of the layout of the Mishkan. And I want you to look at it. And this is something that I discovered in the Malbim, and it blew my mind. All right. This is actually, you are looking at the base. Basically, I'm not saying one can't find some issues that are of question, but essentially we're looking at the layout of a human being. This is the cranial cavity. That's the Holy of Holies. With the ark and the divine throne, that's the cranial cavity. This is the rest of the cranium, right? The menorah represents light, eyes. The table for the showbread represents the mouth and eating. And the altar of incense represents the olfactory senses. And when the priest would, and there is a connection with the priest, the high priest who'd go in, because then when the high priest would enter, there were bells on the bottom of one of his robes that would tinkle as he walked, which of course is the oral sense, right? Okay. This is the rest of the human body here. And this altar here, where they would burn the sacrifices, would represent the digestive system, where food is essentially burned in the human body. And so what we're looking at now is the idea that every single human being has the capability of becoming a Mishkan, meaning that every single person has that possibility of becoming a place where the divine presence resides. Now, the copper basin was used to wash one's hands and one's feet. I do not have an anatomical parallel, at least not yet, but I suspect there may well be, and maybe someday I will come across it. I think...
Well, I mean, maybe just the concept of corporeal cleanliness.
Of course, it could be that. And it could have to do with evacuation, because that's what allows us to keep the body clean. All right? So that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's terribly important, though, for us to recognize what is going on here. And that by accepting the Torah in our minds, right, and allowing it then to influence how we behave, we become an actual tangible place for God to enter, for the divine to enter into the world. That there's such a beautiful connection between the divine and the world that the Torah allows us to actually act on, to become. And it gives us purpose. It gives us a huge purpose. And that's what I wanted you to see. I would tell you also, I don't have a picture of the menorah, although I could take a moment and look it up and find you an illustration. But I'm assuming that you all know what the menorah looks like, or should I get you a picture? Would you prefer a picture? I can go and I can see about getting a picture. One moment. Let's get that.
I see you got that from a Hebrew Christian's.
Yeah, I'm going online, and that's why. Yes. Here we go. Let's see if this will help. See if I can get images. Ah, this is nice.
It was
Okay.
Hebrew for Christians, not Hebrew Christians. There's a big difference.
Okay, this is, well, it's so funny because none of them have actually, oh, this looks like the best one I've got. Okay, let's use this one here. Let's hope this is a, let's see what it's going to say. Okay, this should work. Thank you for being patient with me. Okay. And let me now do this. Okay. That's not what I want. There we go. All right. It's a small picture, but I can make it bigger. Let's see if I can get this one up on the share. Yep, there we go. Right, this is the menorah. At least there are many representations, but this is not a bad one. I'm afraid it's becoming, it's a very small picture that I have. But I believe this actually represents the human face. Look at the human face. These represent the ears. These represent the eyes. These represent the nostrils. And this represents the mouth. And our faces can, again, because of their expression and all that goes into, creating the emotions that we show on our faces. It's communication, it's light, and it can either bring light into this world or not. And these things, these are mentioned, okay? There were also knobs here too, by the way, that this doesn't show at the joints, and then another one down here. So there's certain inaccuracies about it, which, just to let you know. But it was on a stand. The book that I have, I think, has the most accurate picture that I can think of. And I'm going to stop the share here. So again, very important to recognize that we have a very sacred and powerful task in our lives, within our lives, to accomplish. So I'm going to go now to the Torah Tamima itself and find the place. Here we are. So, was there a question before I move on to something else? All right. V'asita shnayim kruvim zahav. You shall make 2 kruvim of gold. And Rashi will explain what a keruv is. There is no English word for it. We use the term cherub. That's what we use. That is the English of keruv. Miksha ta'aseotam. You shall make them out of beaten work. In other words, this gold has to be beaten. It's not put together. It's not soldered. It is all made out of one piece. Mishnei, from the 2 ketzot hakaporet, from the 2 sides of the ark cover of the kaporet. And so this all had to be done by beaten work. They would take a solid piece of gold and beat out the ark cover, the shape of the ark cover, and they would also, the fact that gold is malleable, and they would then also beat out these 2 kruvim, these 2 cherubs. Okay, the Rashi starts over here. Kruvim. So cool. So when you think of the English word cherub, what do you think of? What image comes to your mind?
Fat baby.
Correct. Look at what yes, go ahead. What did you say?
Fat baby with wings.
Yes, exactly.
Naked.
Exactly.
Except for a loincloth.
Yeah.
Renaissance paintings. It's like.
I want you to see the Rashi.
They're all pink.
Demut partsuf tinok lahem. they have a face that looks like a baby, like a suckling, literally is what that means. So this tradition in English that understands cherubs as baby angels has some weight to it.
Well,
Yes.
but it just that their face looks like a baby, and like all these mystical creatures, they're usually some kind of combination of things. They don't all look, their face doesn't necessarily match the rest of their body.
Right, right. And that is true. Okay. And the pictures that I've seen, the representations that I've seen are that the bodies are not that of babies.
Oh,
But the
most of the ones I
they-
see in medieval literature, they are babies.
yes, I know.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how many of these people were reading Rashi or the Talmud or had any knowledge of these particular things. But there was sort of street knowledge, you might say, or common knowledge, just like there is nowadays about many things.
I have a
Which is-
question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Where does this fit into the thou shalt not make graven images?
I was thinking the same. Exactly. I had that question.
Mm.
Thank you.
Very good, very good. So again, deep into the whole notion of accepting God's adonut, God's lordship, God's mastery, is that God has the capability of asking us to do things that we cannot do for ourselves. And if God says, this is what you got to do, you do it. We know what is the essential nature of the prohibition of making graven images. What's the essential nature of that prohibition?
That
Describing
will try to make God.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is there any of that going on here? No.
Well,
No.
I mean, people are made in God's image, so they did say that with people for a while. I'm not sure about angels.
Okay, so there is that sense within the tradition. I think that can be supported within the tradition. Certainly, that little thing about them having baby faces is supportive of human. And it says elsewhere there are descriptions of various mystical beings, some of which may have the body of a man. I mean, the angels that visit Abraham, he sees them as human beings coming to visit him, and he offers them hospitality. So, I mean, I think this isn't what this class is about, but at least I think there's support. But I think the issue is this. We have a prohibition of mixing wool and flax, a clear prohibition. I believe it's in Leviticus, not to mix wool and flax. The clothing of the high priest had a mixture of wool and flax. The talit, there's an interpretation because there's a prohibition of mixing wool and flat, but it says gdilim taselacha, you shall make fringes for yourselves. And because those are in one sense, this is in Tractate Shabbat, there is an accepted interpretation. Not everybody accepts this, as I recollect, but there is an accepted interpretation that when it comes to the talit, you can do that with the talit, but nothing else. And it is a way of separating out something.
That's what I was thinking,
This is
that maybe all of these things that we're talking about, all these prohibitions that are, but are asked to do for the ark or for the high priest clothing and everything, is all a way of separating from what is considered holy. So you shouldn't do it because it's just reserved for.
Right. That's right. It's a way of, by the way, it's an expression of sovereignty, incidentally. It is. And it's a universal value, by the way.
Well, sovereignty is complete separation, because if you have, somebody that is sovereign, you can't all be sovereign. You have to have, that's the nature of it.
Yep.
Question.
Yes.
Question about something you just said about the talus.
Yes.
You can have you can mix or you cannot mix.
You can have a cotton or a linen talit with wool fringes.
What about silk?
Silk is not going to count. It's not part of that prohibition. So there's not a problem. You can, I mean, I'd have to go into the halachot of talit. of talitot. There are in fact halachot and rules about it. And I believe that the way it goes, I'm recording this, but hopefully I'm telling you accurate things. Essentially, you can make the fringes out of wool, and you can use wool as fringes regardless of what material the talit is made out of. However, the other possibility is that if you have a silk talit, then you can have silk fringes. In that particular case, it's also a kosher talit. There are, you go ahead.
Can you
Sorry.
have the fabric be woven of silk and wool combined together?
No, that's not the way this goes. Good question. I'm not sure. Actually, I should back up a second and say that I'm not certain. Certainly, biblically, it would not be prohibited, but you have to understand that we have also within traditional Judaism, we have this fence around the Torah, so that possibly, even though it might not be biblically forbidden, because biblically we would take it pretty literally and say you cannot mix wool and flax. However, you might be able to say that biblically it doesn't prohibit silk, a mixture, a combination of silk and flax, or silk and wool, but it might be rabbinically prohibited. So it might be rabbinically prohibited for the reason that if you mix silk and wool, you might come to mix wool and flax as well. In other words, that the whole idea of mixing fabrics becomes an okay thing. So, and you're not careful about it. But I'm not saying that. I'm only saying that theoretically. I'm not saying that that's a halacha. I'm not giving you a ruling, okay? I'm only giving you an illustration. I could be wrong. You'd have to go check it. We'd have to check it out. Okay.
I'll go further into it at another time.
Right. I would have to research that. All right. Good questions. Miksha ta'aseh, you shall make it out of beaten work. Shelo ta'asem, you shouldn't make them bifnei atzmam, separately. In other words, make each keruv by itself. Utechabrem barashei hakaporet, and then attach them to the ends of the kaporet, of the ark cover. La'achar asiyatam, after they've been fabricated. Kama aseh tzorfim, just as a soldered work that's put together. Letzaref means to bring together, to connect, right? Shekorin, and this certainly looks like soldire, okay? Like means soldered, okay? Ella, however, hatil zahav harbe, take a lot of gold, take a large amount of gold, betchilat asiyat hakaporet, before when you start to make the kaporet, the ark cover, v'hakeh bepatish, and smack it with a hammer, beat it with a hammer, uvekurnas, and a mallet, be'emtza, in the middle, or rashin, boltin, and the heads of it will start to stick out, lamala, above, v'tzayer hakruvim beblitat ktsotav, and design the cherubim in this piece that's sticking out of its ends, the gold that's been pushed out, and make it. Miksha, he takes this word miksha, and here I don't, but it looks like batteuse or something. I don't know what, but it looks like it's related to an English word beaten. But here's the Yiddish, gehammert. Do you think you can figure out an English word in gehammert? Kamor?
With the hammer.
Yeah, exactly. Hammered. Kamor Daniel, as in the book of Daniel. Da la da, this is Aramaic now. One to another, nakshan, are beaten, or I think, or else it means connected. Something like that. I didn't check it out. Katsot hakaporet, the edges of the ark cover, Rashi hakaporet. He says the head of the kaporet. The maybe it means, well, literally Rashi means the ends, something like that, or the beginnings of the ark cover. Here we go. Va'aseh keruv echad mikatza mizeh. Make one keruv from one side, from this one side, ukrov echad mikatza mizeh, and the other cherub on the other side, from the other side, min hakaporet, of the kaporet, of the ark cover, tasu et hakruvim, you should make the cherubs al shnei katzotav, and on its two ends. Va'aseh kruv echad mikatza, shelo tomar, you should not say shnei kruvim lechol katzeh. You shouldn't understand the Hebrew, that the verse that just happened, as meaning two cherubs on each side. We're not talking about four cherubs. We're only talking about two. The katzeh, in other words, two on each side. Lachach utzrach lefaresh, and this is why the verse needs to specify kruv echad mikatzeh mizeh, one cherub from one side.
It sure should have done that with the people carrying the ark. It didn't specify, one or two per end.
Right, but that was Rashi, remember? It didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't really talk much about carrying at all. It just said those poles were used for carrying, and that was it.
Right.
So,
Well, it did say, it said a man between the poles.
wasn't that Rashi who said that?
I thought it was in the text.
I'd have to go back and check. My memory
Maybe.
is not that good. I'd have to go back. I just thought it said the poles by which the ark would be carried, and that's all I remember. But you can check me out.
I'm checking.
I've been known to be wrong. Okay, min hakaporet, of the ark cover.
Yeah, maybe it was.
Atzma taaseh et hakruvim. Okay, so he's saying atzma would mean from itself. You should make the cherubs. Zehu perusho shel miksha. This is the explanation of beaten. Ta'aseh otam, you should make them beaten. Shelo ta'aseh bifnei atzman, that you shouldn't make them separately, utechabrem lakaporet, and then attach them to the ark cover. We're going to keep going about the cherubs, right? V'hayu hakruvim porsek nafaim lamala, the cherubs should be stretching their wings upwards. Sochachim bekhanfehem al hakaporet, the word sukkah, right, that we have for the sukkah, covering through their wings, with their wings over the ark cover. They should, in other words, they should stretch out their wings upwards and over the ark cover. Ufneihem, and their faces, ish el achiv, one, literally you'd say, a man to his brother. El hakaporet, towards the ark cover, yu pnei hakruvim, the faces of the cherubs should be towards the ark cover. Porsek nafayim, stretching out their wings. Shelo taseh kanfehem shochavim, that their wings should not be resting. Ela prusim ugvohim, but spread out and upwards and high, lifted up. Lamala etzel rashahem, upwards next to their faces, next to their heads. Sheyahei yud tefachim b'chalal, so that there should be 10 handbreadths b'chalal, in the empty space, shebein haknafayim, but that is between the wings, lakaporet, and the ark cover. Kedeita b'sukkah, as is mentioned in the tractate Sukkah in the Talmud. Okay, let's find the place. Here we are. V'natata et hakaporet al ha'aron, you shall place the ark cover on the ark, milamala, above. Ve'el ha'aron titen, and into the ark you shall put et ha'edut, the testimony, asher eten elecha, which I will give to you. Ve'el ha'aron titen ha'edut, and into the ark you should put the testimony. And Rashi says, gives us a little personal comment. Lo yadati lama nichpal. I don't understand why this is said twice, because I think it was said above. Shaharei kvar ne'amar. It already is mentioned above. V'natata el ha'aron. You shall put into the ark et ha'edut, the testimony. We read that a verse that mentioned it already. V'yesh lomar, and one could say, sheba lelamed, that it comes to instruct us, sheba odo aron levado, that while it is only an ark, in other words, you've just made the ark all by itself, and you haven't made the ark cover yet, but lo kaporet, without the ark cover, yitain tchila ha'edut, he should put the testimony lo tocho into the ark, even though you haven't fabricated the ark cover yet. It's giving you a sense of the order in which this is all done. V'hacharkach, and after that, yitain et hakaporet, then he should put the ark cover, alav, upon it. V'chein matzinu, and this, in fact, we found keshehekim et hamishkan, that when he erected the tabernacle, ne'emar, it states in Exodus chapter 40, vayiten et ha'edut el ha'aron, it says he placed the testimony into the ark, v'achar kach, and after that it says, vayiten et hakaporet al ha'aron milamala, he then placed the ark cover onto the ark from above, after he had then completed making it. And I think that's significant. And the reason why I think it's significant is because it underscores the connection of changing our lives and allowing our lives to be governed by the Torah, by this idea of accepting the Torah into ourselves and living our lives according to the Torah. And doing that then makes it possible for the divine then to enter our lives. And I think this verse, the no'adati lacha, and I shall come to you, I shall be present to you, sham, there, v'dibarti itcha, and I shall speak to you, me'al hakaporet, from on the ark cover, mibein shnei hakruvim, from between the two cherubim, asher al aron ha'edut, which are upon the ark covers, et kol asher atzaveh otcha, everything that I will command you, el bnei Yisrael, for the children of Israel. So just underscoring what I mentioned, the no'adati, and I shall appear, keshe ekba moed lecha ledaber, when I set aside a specific time for you to ledaber imcha, to speak to you, oto makom ekba, that same place I will establish, lemoed, for the appointment. I like to translate the word moed, which is, by the way, the Hebrew word we use for the festivals. It's another word. The word chag has to do with encircling the altar. A chug is like a circle, but moed is an appointed time, an appointment. She'avo sham ledaber lecha, that I will come there to speak to you. Let's find here we go. V'dibarti itcha me'al hakaporet, and I shall speak to you from above the ark cover. Uv'makom acher hu omer, and in another place it says in Leviticus 1, Vaydaber Hashem elav me'ohel moed. It says God spoke to him from the tent of meeting, lemor, saying. So that's the quote. Zeh hamishkan michutz. This would refer to the Mishkan, the tabernacle, michutz la parochet, from the other side of the, this is the curtain, nimtzu shnei ktuvim machashim ze et ze. This appears to contradict. We now have two scriptural verses which appear to contradict each other. Ba hakatuv hashlishi, then the third scriptural verse comes, umachria beinehem, and it settles the contradiction, and that is in Numbers 7, uvavo Moshe el ohel moed, and when Moses came into the tent of meeting, vayishma et hakol medaber elav, he would hear God's voice, he'd hear the voice speaking to him, me'al hakaporet, from above the ark cover, etc. Moshe haya nichnas la mishkan, when Moses went into the Mishkan, into the tabernacle, the kevan sheba betoch hapetach, and as soon as he came into the opening, Kol yored min hashamayim, a voice comes down from heaven, levein hakruvim, between the cherubim, umoshe yotze v'nishma, hakruvim, umisham, sorry, it's not a hey, it's a mem. Umisham yotze, and from there it comes out, it issues forth. V'nishma leMoshe b'ohel moed, and Moses hears it while he's standing in the tent of meeting, not in the Holy of Holies. Ve'et kol asher atzaveh otcha el bnei Israel, and all that I will command you regarding the children of Israel. Harei vav zo, that is ve'et, the v of ve'et. This vav zo yetera, it's redundant. Utfeila, and it's tafel is means that it isn't part of the main meaning. Ukamohu harbe bamikra, and there are many examples of such a vav which you don't have to translate as and. V'cho, he gives examples, I believe. V'cho tipater. And he says, and this you can explain, ve'et asher adaber imcha sham, that which I will speak to you there, et kol asher atzaveh otcha, everything that I will command you, not the ve'et. El bnei Israel, to the children of Israel, who it is. Okay. So in other words, it's just emphasizing that this is what God will tell, when God wants to tell Moses what to tell the children of Israel, it'll come from that particular location. It's not an additional thought. And it is now after 8. So we will have to end there. There was really an interesting Torah Tmima. I will take the moment and tell you that I'll stop the share. That the Kruvim, there is a tradition that they were male and female, that one Kruv was male and the other Kruv was female, and they were looking at each other. And you know that when you're in love with someone and you're looking at them directly, it's something that stimulates you. Okay, it's a very stimulating kind of experience. And I was reading in the Torah Tmima, he quotes a passage which says, like on Yom Kippur, I think it was, that when the Israelites were gathered in the temple, they would set apart the curtain, and they would get to see these two cherubim looking at each other with this intense love. And they would say, look at the degree to which God loves you with such intense love. So he says he discusses other things. He's not sure what support there is to suggest that one of the cherubim was male and the other was female, but nevertheless, it is a tradition. It is a tradition. So with that, I am going to stop recording.
Except it says that they're looking down
at each other. No, they're looking towards the ark cover.
Towards the ark cover, yeah. So
yeah, but they still
not up. Yeah.
No, they're not looking up, but they're looking at each other and towards the ark cover. They're not looking away. They're not looking.
No, of course not. No.
They're looking towards the ark cover. They're at the ends of the ark covers.
Yes, they're facing each other, looking towards the ark cover.
Well, okay. According to
yeah.
they were. Okay. I'm going to stop the recording and wish people Shabbat Shalom.